So now we're on to water, guys. So what I have here is I have a recipe. We're going to reference this again because this has the water that we're going to put in. We're concerned with the one that says mash volume. So what we're getting prepared to do is to add the grains. Before that, we actually have to put the water in the unit. A couple of things about the water. We never want to turn the unit on when there's no water in it. If we do, we run the risk of overheating the unit and tripping the thermal cycling switch. That's a bad thing. Just remember to put water in it before you turn it on. The other thing with the water is it's steam distilled water. The reason we use steam distilled water is because we pre-adjust the water for you by adding minerals. So remember that little baggie of powder that was in the water heater here? Those are the minerals for the second step. The minerals for the first step are already pre-calculated and they're mixed in with your grains. So we're using steam distilled water, so kind of a blank slate. When it comes to volumes of water, that's what's on your recipe. So we're concerned mainly with right now is the mash volume. Mash just means we're putting water and grains together. We're mashing them together. It's kind of, think of it's more like making oatmeal almost. So you're going to add your grains to the water, add your oatmeal to the water. Everything in here is on metric. That's because this system was originally developed in Australia, so they have everything over there is metric. On your recipe, I will have penciled in the gallons, but this also has markings on the inside that are going to be in metric. So it's just helpful as a kind of a visual reference. Each of those metric marks you can go back and double check visually as well as here. So we're going to put 19.8 liters of water into the main brew chamber. That roughly equates to 4.49 gallons. Each of these totes is going to be 10 gallons or 5 gallons of water. The tops on them, these are designed for turning upside down on a water cooler. We don't care about that. Just go ahead and rip the whole thing off. So we're going to take the top of it directly off. And since we're doing 4.49 gallons, it's nearly the entire thing. There's no reason to be particularly gentle with it. We're just going to pick it up and dump it in. All right, so remember it was the 4.49, so I don't want to go all the way in. So I'm going to start to slow down here a little bit, and I'm just going to double check. And what I'm looking at here is going to be the liter markings on there. So for 16.98 liters, right around 17. I'm just about to the 17 liter hash mark here. So we're going to call it. So we have about a half a gallon water left. All right, so we use almost all of that first water jug for our initial pour. We can use the rest of it in here. It doesn't matter. You're not going to use all the water. That's important. So you're going to have water left over. Totally okay. Totally expected. Water does shift recipe to recipe. So this is specific to your recipe. Depending on how much grain we're putting into the grain basket, will determine how much water we're putting in the first time. So keep in mind, we want to keep that water as close as possible to what's on your recipe, because that does matter for the mineral balance as well as the strength or weakness of the overall beer solution that we're going to be brewing today. Okay. So now that we've added the water, we can either hit start heating here, or we can go down here and hit the heat button right here. Either one will work, and it's going to turn on the heater all the same. So we're going to go ahead and hit start heating. Now this is heating, and we're going to be able to track our heating percentage right here in the app. You can also track the graph, but it's also going to show you here as well. So our target temperature is 65 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 152 degrees Fahrenheit, if my calculations are correct, which they probably aren't, so don't take me for that. But one thing I want you guys to check. So this says it's heating here. This says it's heating here. What we want to check is we want to go down here and we want to check and make sure that this little switch is actually on. So this should be glowing orange or red, whichever color it is. That means it's on. If this is off, I can turn that off, and you'll notice it didn't change anything on our control box. The control box thinks it's still heating. It's still sending the signal to the heater to be heating, but it's not actually heating. So that's why this is important, to make sure this is illuminated and it's on in the up position. All right, for now, what we can do is we're just gonna put the lid back on. So while this is heating up, what we're gonna do next is we're actually gonna get our auxiliary water heater here. It's called the Sparge water heater. But essentially it's just like a coffee urn. But what it does have is it's preset to a certain temperature that we're going to need for our sparging temperature. And you'll see it says sparge on it, which is 168 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, reminder, sparge just means we're going to rinse the grains. That's going to come a little bit later. So we're going to take this and we're going to fill this with 3.6 gallons of water. That's going to be on the little sheet that we sent you. This is actually a North American product, so it actually is in gallons. It's an imperial, so it's not in metric. On the sight glass here we have gallon and half gallon. So we're 3.6. We're just over a hair over the 3.5 gallons here. And don't forget though, when we go up into this has your little baggie of minerals in it. Go ahead and take this out. We're going to add the water to it. And then when this is heated up, we'll add the minerals. So just set this to the side. I'm going to set it right here on the little mat so I know right where it is. And I can come back and add that in a little bit when it's ready. The thing about this is it does draw some power. So you're not necessarily going to want it on the same power circuit that the main brewing unit's operating on, because you run the risk of tripping a switch. So if you haven't used the extension cord for the brewing system, this might be a great opportunity to use it. This doesn't weigh much. We're only putting about 3 gallons of water in here. It's roughly about 15, 20 pounds. I just move it. It's got handles. They're heat safe. They're not going to get too hot. We did provide hot pads if you'd like to. On this specific unit, if this one comes with your brewing system, there are 2 settings. There's a low setting at 750 watts or a high setting at 1500 watts. If it's on a separate circuit, go ahead and pump it up to the 1500 watts. If you have to do it on the same circuit, no more than 750 to limit your exposure to flipping that breaker. So we're going to go ahead and fill this with water, and then we're going to move it inside and go ahead and plug it in. And I'm just going to set this on the ground to fill it. I could do it up here, but then I'm going to have to lift that 5 gallons of water up higher, or it's going to be a lot easier to pour the 3 gallons in here and then lift the 3 gallons up than hold 5 gallons up for a long period of time. Now with the bottles, just set them to the side. I would like these back. We have a deposit on each one of these bottles. It just keeps our operating expenses a little bit more in check. A little bit past half full. I'm just going to check and make sure that I'm not getting too high here. And I'm only at about 2.5 gallons right now, so I'm going to keep going. This only holds 4 gallons, so you're going to get it pretty close to the top. And we are just at a hair over 3.5, which is right about 3.6. So we're set. So now that we have that full, what I'm going to go ahead and just put the lid on. I'm going to go ahead and move it into my kitchen where I can plug that into a different outlet. This is preset, so the green light will go on when it's at 168 degrees. It's completely hands off. You don't need to do anything with it. We'll need it a little bit later. But I'm just going to go ahead and kick that in now.